It's an honor to introduce today's special guest, El Salvador's Vice President, Félix Ulloa. Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Here with Vice President Félix Ulloa. Sorry. And I understand it's a very common name in El Salvador.
Well, it is a Spanish background coming from, this part of Galicia, Ulloa, Los Pasos de Ulloa. This is a very famous novel written in the 19th century. So I guess it is come from this last name.
When you ran for vice president, at that time, El Salvador had the highest homicide rate in the world, right? It was close to 900 people a month were being murdered. Today, it's a different story, right? What's the situation now with crime and homicides in El Salvador now?
Yes, as you said, in August 2015, this newspaper, the British newspaper, The Guardian, it puts in the front page, El Salvador, the worldwide capital of homicide. And the rate was over 900 killed in that month. 30 Salvadorans were killed in one day. That means that every hour, more than one Salvadoran were killed. Now we have 1,045 days with zero homicide. Zero homicide.
That's over 3 years.
Over the 6 years of the mandate of President Bukele, but from the last 3 years, what we have we declare the war against the guns, we have 900 days without any homicide. So how we can get that? I mean, first of all, because it was a decision made and taken by the President Bukele declaring the war against the guns. And doing that, he used all the resources that we were available in the government, and not only on the executive branch, which is the police and the armed forces, but also in the Congress and the legislative branch. We modify and we change and we create a special legal framework in order to fight the gangs. And in addition, we have the judiciary branch. So there were a generation of judges that they were in collusion with the gangs, either because they were bribed by the gangs or because they were threatened by the gangs. But either ways, the gangs leaders, they were released from the courts. So we closed those, we call that the revolving door, because the executive branch took them, sent it to the Attorney General, the police captured, the Attorney General sent it to the judge, and the judge released the gangs. So the revolving door was over because we closed the loopholes that was in the penal legal system. So we increase the penalties, we modify the legal procedures. For instance, the penal responsibility is one of the dogmas in the penal law. This is very individual. So if you commit a crime, you're responsible for it. It's not your sister, your brother, or your son, your father. Now we change that, and the criminal responsibility now is of the gang. I mean, it's collective. That means that once we send a gang to a hearing with the judge, it is the criminal structure who face the trial. And if it is condemned, all the members of the gang are condemned. And then it comes the penalty according to the participation of the gang, the hierarchy. So that has been changed, and it was a surprise in the legal community because according to the basic principle of the penal law, the responsibility is personal. Now in El Salvador it's collective. Why we have to do it? Because we have captured more than 85,000 members of the gangs. So if you go in particular personal cases in the hearings with the judge, you will pass more than 100 years to deal with all of them. So the solution was to judge the criminal structure as a whole, and then it comes the personal responsibility according to the participation in the gang.
Would that process work in other countries as well? I mean, like in Mexico, I mean, there was cartels and similar kind of problems that El Salvador at one time had.
We wish, but I mean, it is a unique model. That's what they call the Bukele's model, because to do that, you need, for instance, you want to implement it in Mexico or in Ecuador or in Peru, all these countries that are suffering the attacks of the organized crime, the gangs. I mean, you need to have align the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive branch. So we get that after the election in 2021, because the first 2 years when we were in office, the Congress was dominated by the two-party systems. So when the people, the population realized that the executive, the President Bukele, couldn't get and couldn't reach out all the promises that he did during the campaign trail, I mean, the population vote, massive vote for the candidates of the Nuevas Ideas, the party of President Bukele. And with that majority in the Congress, we were allowed to enact new laws and change and amendment some laws. And that means that now the Congress and the executive are in the same line. And the Congress appoint the judiciary in the Supreme Court. So now this Congress, the new Congress elected in 2021, appoint the new judiciary. And then with these three branches of the government, you are allowed to implement this program. It didn't happen in other countries because, the Congress are fighting with the president, or the judiciary, they are using this the lawfare to challenge politicians, making or bringing to the justice with fake crimes some politician in order to use the justice as a political tool. So it doesn't happen in El Salvador. So we are now telling the people and the world at large that El Salvador is living a new way of democracy, respecting the human right, respecting the rule of law, but with the strong leadership of one leader elected democratically by the people in free and fair elections.
And I should say for our viewers that at the time you ran, there was two entrenched parties, and then you and President Bukele kind of had a third party that came into power and was able to really upset the whole apple cart and start fresh.
Yeah, we were a sort of outsiders who came to the two-party system that was being run in the country from the last 30 years after the Civil War, when we reached out the peace through the peace accords in 1992. The right-wing party ruled the country for 20 years. And then the left-wing party ran the country for 10 years. That means 30 years with the two-party system governing the country. And what we get? We got this increasing of the gangs. They started as little criminals, people like did some small crimes, but during the government of these two parties, they grew up, they strengthened, they became an alternative state in the society. I mean, they governed more than half of the territory, national territory. It was under the jurisdiction of the gangs. So only in the two governments previous to President Bukele, it was from 2009 to 2019, in those 10 years with the FMLN, the left-wing party, governed El Salvador. According to the report of the Legal Medicine Institute, we have 41,000 killed Salvadorians. That was the year when we were labeled as the dangerous country in the world. So what does that mean? That means that there were no way to deal with the gangs as the way they did it, because they make a truce with the gangs. They bargain with the gangs. They tried to make a tit for tat with them, but President Bukele said that is over. Now we will fight them in the only way that we can defeat them, which is declaring the war, adapting the legal framework in order to act all the time, anytime, based in a legal provision, in a legal basis, which is the rule of law works. What is the rule of law, of course, about is having the base on the law. So that's what we are doing now. And the Bukele models is being, an inspiration for other countries. For instance, we received the visit of the Minister of Interior of Argentina, Mrs. Patricia Bullrich. She came with all the staff to learn, to explore, to research how we did it. We received the visit of the Minister of Interior from Ecuador. We have received other, requests for countries, neighbor country, in order to help them out in implement the model in their country, because they are suffering the violence of the gangs. Look at Haiti. Haiti has become a failed state because the gang took over all the country. They rule the country now.
And you have a personal story with this. Wasn't your father murdered as well?
Yes, but that happened during the Civil War in the 80s. My dad was the rector, the president of the National University, and he was killed. He was shot down on, by the way, we recently commemorate the 45th anniversary of his murder in October 28, 1980, by a death squad. But that was the war that was motivated by political and ideological reasons. The worst part of the new war, which is the war against the gang, is they have not any ideological goal. What they have is just violence itself to get funds, financial resource, money for the leaders, and that's it. So to fight them wasn't the same struggle that we have in the 80s. That was a political and ideological war. This was a social war, with dealing with people that grew up under a government that didn't care about them. Those are the children of the war. Most of the members of the gangs, the first generation, were the kids that were abandoned by the fathers. They ran out of the country, or they were killed in the war. And the government of those years didn't care of them. So they grew up in that condition, and then they became associated to the gangs, the gangs leader that they were deported from the United States to El Salvador. The gangs, they were born in LA. And from LA, they were deported to El Salvador and matched with the young kids and people over there, and they start creating this new phenomenon, social phenomenon that we call pandillas in Spanish, which is the gangs, that is now an international organization and has been declared as a terrorist elsewhere. Even in the United States, they have been declared as a terrorist, the M13, for instance.
Mm-hmm. When I was in El Salvador, I know that I went and visited some facilities there where oftentimes when you arrested these cartel members, these gang members, these terrorists, the family, the adults would be gone and the children would remain. And to avoid having the next generation of children become cartel members and gang members, you created some programs, at least I visited one in El Salvador, where you work with these children and you give them a home and you give them education so they don't repeat what the parents have done.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. This was one of the main concerns of the President Bukele, and he remarked exactly as you said. We don't want that these kids being the new generation of young members in the soon future. So to take care of them, we create different programs. One of the most remarkable, and I always advise the people who come to visit our countries to visit a cubo. Cubo, it is in Spanish mean Centro Urbano de Bienestar y Oportunidades. I mean, urban center for opportunities, which is, facilities that the youth, the kids, even the adults, the elderly people used to go. There are computers, there are places that you can make, exercise. There are space like a public library. All is internet connected. You are online anytime. I mean, something that presents and represents the way that the community took over the spaces that in the past were occupied by the gangs. For instance, the first queue that we created was in Mexicanos. It's a neighborhood very close to the capital city. In that neighborhood, one of the gangs, Barrio 18, I mean the gang 18, they burned an autobus with the people inside, with the passenger inside. It was awful, and it showed the ruthless of these people. So in that place where the headquarters of this gang was there, we built a coup, and we named with the name of a young leader that was killed by them, community leader. So a voluntary that was working with the kids, they killed him because he doesn't want to join to the gang, so he was killed. Now we named the coup with his name to honor his legacy. So that is the way that we are trying to take care of this new generation, the new kids. Then we have, for instance, I think it's the only country in the region that has delivered one tablet or one laptop, computer, to all the students of the public system. Every single student in the public system, in the public school, has received an electronic, device, and the teachers, of course, and they are now learning and being educated with the Google Classroom, because we have this agreement with Google, and so we're using that to educate our people. That means that those kids that never, ever in their lives will be afford to buy a computer, the government deliver one of them, and they will be more functional in this digital era that is not the future, is the present now.
You had a very successful career. And when President Bukele asked you to join the ticket, you're an attorney, professor, diplomat, father, constitutional scholar, lived in, unbelievable, this man has lived in 25 different countries. And I don't mean just for a couple of days. He would be spending a year, 2 years in remote areas of Africa sometimes. But what was for you, it was a big decision, because he had an idea, starting working with a different party, a third party. He had ideas and thoughts on how to improve the country. You were very comfortable. You had a great life. What was it that motivated you to go then into politics and become the vice president?
Well, it's a long story, but I will to put it in a nutshell. When I came back from this life working abroad and with international bodies, with the National Democratic Institute from the United States, with the United Nations, with the OAS, with different international bodies in more than 20 countries around the world. So I get retired and I decide to go back to my country to enjoy my life. But at that moment, a young leader, which is Nayib Bukele, was the mayor of a small town. And he called me to be part of his, advisors, because he wanted to run for mayor in the capital city, San Salvador. We did it. He won, and I continued my life. I went to Middle East. I was in Lebanon. I went to South America, in Colombia for the referendum. I spent, I get back to Haiti to support them for electoral process. But then when I get back, he told me that he was expelled from the FMLN, which is the party what he would run for mayor, and he won. And he told me that he wants to create a third party, new ideas, nuevas ideas. And I said, yes, I like it. I prepared the bylaws and every legal issues. We registered the party, and he wanted to run under the flag of his party. But the Electoral Commission impeded that. They didn't allow him to run, so we were looking for another parties. I was advising him. I became a kind of electoral, legal, political advice in this period of his life. And suddenly, when the Supreme Court, in a decision that it was totally against the Constitution, against the law, decided to cancel the party, where Bukele was registered to run for office, he called me and said, "What can we do?" And I said, "Okay, let me see. I will see you tomorrow," because as a lawyer, I was thinking to make an appeal, to go to the court, try to make a legal battle. But he was smarter, and he immediately make a deal with another party and called me at 10:15 in the nighttime. And the deadline to be registered was at midnight. So he called me. I thought it was for a legal work, but no, instead he said, "Sign here, you will be part of my ticket." I have no time to reflect. I have no time to check with my wife, with my friend, with my kid. Nothing. It was, take it or leave it in that minute, in this
Wow.
very last time. And we did it and we won. And now I will feel comfortable what he's doing. Finally, all my ideals that I fight for when I was young, when I was mature, when I was professional, with all these, practices that I had in different countries in the world, now I think we are putting in place in El Salvador, and we are transforming a country that was labeled as the dangerous countries in the world in the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. From Canada to Argentina, including the Caribbean, the El Salvador is the safest country, and this is something that you can see on the figures, because those days when we were labeled as the worldwide capital of the homicide, the rate was that 105 killed by every 100,000 inhabitants. Now we have 1.9. In Canada, they have now 2.5
Wow.
murders for every 100,000 inhabitants, which means that our rate is lower than Canada, and that gives us, and we proudly said, we are the safest country of the Americas, of the Western Hemisphere, and one of the most safe countries in the world. We are in the top 10 safest country worldwide. So what this allows us to do, that's permit, as President said in his second mandate in the speech, he said, in our first mandate, we get the miracle of the safe, of the security. Now, in this second mandate, we will try to reach out the miracle of economic growth. And that we are doing now. We are building a new country. Tourism has become the most important source of foreign currency for El Salvador.
And I will vouch for the beaches and
Beaches,
beautifulness
Lucano,
of El
rivers,
Salvador.
mountains. You can enjoy all the landscape, beautiful country,
Yeah.
but the most important, beautiful people. They are friendly, they are warm, they will receive you as, all friends, the family. So Salvadorian, we are very, friendly people with every people who visit in our country.
And that's been my experience in El Salvador. What is the economy of El Salvador? Is there manufacturing? What is it that the country produces? How do they survive economically?
Well, basically, we have this the textile industry. We fill 2% of the market in the United States. We are one of the top 10 countries that export the textile to the United States. But we also produce glasses, pharmaceutical industry, cartoon, and sugarcane, coffee. But the president is focused more in transforming the country in a hub for financial and technology. As you remember, we were the first country in the world
Bitcoin.
to approve the Bitcoin as a legal tender. Now we are, today, the first country in the world that has a government commission to certify the digital assets. Our Commission of Digital Assets is a model that many countries has come in to see how it works, in order to bring back to their countries the way that we are working on this asset. But innovation is our focus on, and same as renewable energies. The matrix, when we arrived to El Salvador in the energy, was that we were importing from Guatemala 20% of the energy that we need. 5 years later, we stopped importing and we are selling to the Central American energy market our energy, because we changed the matrix. We have not only hydro, we have also aeolic from the wind, we have solar, but one most important is the geothermal, because we don't have oil in the undersoil, but we have geothermal from the volcanoes. That's what the president announced, that the Bitcoin city will be built under the volcano Conchagua, because we are plenty of energy. Those are clean energies. Those are, renewable energy, and that we are now exporting. But as I said, our focus is more transforming in the digital economy, the fintechs, and all these, fiscal incentives that the new laws, economic laws, have been approved and enacted for the Congress, allow to the people who comes to invest in El Salvador innovation 15 years without paying any tax, in order to attract this investment. And because that, we don't have only this agreement with Google, we have received the request from Tether to bring to El Salvador not another branch, the headquarters, and to build a 70 stories building, because this is another law that we have been enacted. If you build a tower over 35 stories, you don't pay taxes for the first 15 years. So we have been creating these incentives in order to attract foreign investment.
Smart policies. Let's go back to the tourism. We have about a minute and a half left in the show. Sell El Salvador to an American tourist. Why should an American tourist come down to El Salvador?
Well, because we are very close. You are 2 hours away from Miami, you are 3 hours away from Houston. I mean, we're almost neighbor. So you can take advantage of this, the near shore. Secondly, because it's the safest country. Thirdly, because the tourism offer is coming more attractive now. Because on the first step was just surfing. I mean, we create this, mark that Surf City is a trademark from Salvadorans, but now has been, increasing to the mountains. We have tourism in the mountains, in the lakes, on the rivers. So it's a way to present to the Americans new cultures, because we have also our background in the pre-colonial era, before the Spanish come on to El Salvador. So you can find this geological and archaeological richness that can enjoy your life and give you some part of the history of our people. So there are many outlets that you can explore coming from the United States to the El Salvador.
And it's beautiful hiking, volcanoes, and of course the weather.
Yes, the weather is perfect.
The weather is best. Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. And I know we work very well with El Salvador and the United States. We're good friends, and you help contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Ed, and as always, it has been a pleasure to talk to you and through you with your audience. And my greetings for all the people that's watching your program.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.